All right, recapping the game. You know, sometimes you watch the film and it's a little bit different, or a lot of it different than you feel after the game. It really wasn't. Felt that we did some really good things in the first half, especially offensively. And, you know, whether it was, you know, running or throwing or, you know, scoring at the end there in kind of a 2-minute situation. And really did some things for the first time this year on defense we hadn't done, blowing some coverages, misfit some runs. And so, like we tell them, it doesn't matter what you've done before. You guys hear it all the time. Every week is independent of a previous week, and every half is. You know, I told them this morning, you know, people want to compare scores. Well, if you beat this team by this and that team beat them, you know, it's what you guys do, what sports fans do. Think, well, that game went that way, so when you played that opponent, well, think how little that matters, because every game is different. The halves are different. You would have thought after watching the first half of that game, there's no way we're not going to score in the second half. So, you know, like anything here, we try to take negatives, learn them, teach them, you know, turn them into teaching lessons, and, you know, that was a really good one. You cannot expect, just because you score 35 points, have a bunch of yards in the first half, that the second half is going to go that way.
You talked about it all last week and even after the game, and it's kind of become a topic of discussion heading into the SEC opener and all these SEC games coming up. Just how important is fan support for games like this, coming up with a top 10 team?
Yeah, you know, again, we utilize any situation to teach our players, and, you know, so talk to them again, which we have before, about, hey, you know, regardless of what you come out to before the game or halftime, you know, when you come back out and you run out the tunnel and it looks like, you know, a high school game playing in a college stadium, you can't let that affect you. I mean, you know, there's psychology to that, obviously. There's a home field advantage for a reason. And, you know, when it goes the other way and you kind of have that feeling, you know, that, man, are we still really playing in a game here? You know, the players have to fight that. So, again, we use that as a learning lesson for our guys. So if that's the case, that's the case. But, I mean, I'm worried about what I can control. I've tried social media in here for 2 years, so, you know, we'll worry about what we can control, and that's getting our players ready to play.
That 2020 game that you played against Kentucky was obviously a pretty crazy one. It was your first win. What do you kind of remember about that matchup?
Not knowing much about our team at all, you know, because of the no spring and the Florida game, and, you know, the feeling of, hey, we're going to struggle on defense. We've got some special pieces on offense, but how's that going to fit? And really kind of going to the game, I couldn't have told you what was going to happen. And so just a wild game. Played really poorly on defense. I think 400 yards rushing. You know, made a good comeback on offense, and, you know, finished the game off with, you know, the touchdown with Matt to Elijah. And so it was a wild game, one that could have went either way.
Kind of going off Michael's question, Lane, in the last season and a half or so, you guys in Kentucky are both 15-3 in your last 18 games. The only teams in the league that have been better than that, obviously, are Alabama and Georgia. If I told you that on that day in Lexington in 2020, would you have believed that you'd gotten to this place this fast?
I would have taken that. And, I mean, I normally, you know, say, hey, we have high expectations and always want to do better, but, and that's a pretty good number, and I guess Mark might say the same thing, especially, you know, with the rest, you know, in the, you know, playing in the SEC. So, but again, every season's independent, every game's independent, and so we've got a lot of good pieces, as we've seen. And like I said, as frustrating as parts of the game were, it's better to be frustrated that you see pieces where, like, hey, at times we play really special on offense, we play really special on defense and special teams. So that's the good part, because we've all been around teams where you just feel kind of helpless on one side of the ball, like it ain't going to matter what we do, we're going to struggle over there. So that's the good part of it. We got a chance to be really good, but a lot of things have to happen.
You've been pretty complimentary of Jackson this fall, except for a couple of decision-making. Just where is he right now compared to where you wanted him to be, and what are the things that you kind of need to see more from him in SEC play?
Well, I really like that we didn't have the one disaster play, and so that's growth, because he had that in the previous games where there's one significant play you want to take back, especially the 2 interceptions. So, that was really good to see. He managed the game well at the end, a situation of staying in bounds to end the game. And, like I kind of said before, we have such high standards, and myself kind of with that position, that sometimes forget how young they are and inexperienced. And, even this morning watching this Kentucky game from 2 years ago, that would be Matt's second game with us, and even though he's played for a while, but with us it's his second game, and you see him make really good plays, but you see him miss some throws, miss some reads in the game, which didn't happen as much last year. So, it's a reminder that, there's a reason experience is important.
What are your expectations this week, availability-wise, for Zach and Ulysses, just kind of getting them back?
Yeah, I would hope they go, and that's when we're at our best, when all 3 are there, and there's some special teams roles that are involved with that position group too that are important.
Through 4 games, what's kind of your evaluation of Trigg, and also what are you still trying to maybe get out of him at this point?
Well, I think that Trigg has suffered, statistically in the passing game by what's happened. I don't remember him offhand. I wrote him last night. If you look at the last 2 games, run to pass ratio, or like Navy or something, so, that when there aren't a lot of balls going around and a lot of it's quick game outside to the guys, he really, there's not a lot of balls going to him, and we're running the ball a lot. So, a lot of that has nothing to do with anything he's done or not done. So we know that he has great ability to make plays. We've seen it. I mean, we've had scrimmages of him over 200 yards before. So, like we've said before, you can't predict games, and all of a sudden, after a few games, you're headed this direction, and then a game happens, and somebody, has a blow-up game, and, with huge numbers. So hopefully that'll be him.
Lane, what kind of challenges does Will Levis present, and is he comparable to anybody that you've seen recently?
I don't know that, and I study that a little more as the week goes on. With Monday, still just trying to, this morning, just get through the last game and get moving. So I'll be able to answer that better later on.
Lane, obviously Kentucky, the administration chose to stay with Mark through some not much success early. When coaches take over a program, is there a number generally that they think, oh, I'm going to start seeing a difference right here? And are most administrations waiting that long?
There's one of those questions the answer to about administrations waiting that long. I call that a Southern thing, when you ask questions that you know the answer to, just to hear the answer, to confirm your answer that, yeah, administrations don't wait very long nowadays. I gotcha. I'm learning. So, like when people say, hey, do you live right by the country club? And then they're like, hey, does the house look like this? I'm like, well, if you don't know, how are you describing the house exactly? But, so it's the world we live in, and when much is given, and salaries got to where they were, I'm sure that's part of it, and expectations. And I've said before, there's a Saban factor, when someone comes in, turns something around and makes a run like that, then there's the expectation that, well, man, we should be doing that, at other places, or maybe places a little lower saying, well, we should be close to that. So it's just changed. That's why you see people getting fired after 2 years, which if you think about the old model, like that's really makes no sense. You can't, change a program. When you take over a program, someone said a term a while ago, actually athletic director, when they went through a change to see what it was really like. It's like turning around a freight train. You know, it ain't like it's just, oh, you just make a turn. I mean, you got to do a lot of things. You got 100 players, you got systems, you got employees. There's a lot to be done. Now, can it be done quicker than it used to be because of the portal? Yeah, but still, it still takes time to do the other parts of it. You can just add, because you have free agency now, just like in the NFL, if you didn't have free agency, it'd be harder to have a quick turnaround. So, but people are really impatient, and I get it. So,
Throughout the
I mean, think about it, we got people paying millions of dollars just not to wait a couple weeks to fire a coach. Millions of dollars from a university.
Throughout the whole quarterback competition this entire time, what attributes did you see from Jackson that led to you naming him the starter?
I just think he continued to improve. You know, got out of some bad habits, which has nothing to do with where he was before. Just he's a young quarterback, and you know, not that far removed from playing in high school. So his growth in the last few weeks has been more than his growth in all of the time here by far. So that's been really good to see. You see him playing a lot faster and dropping with speed and getting rid of the ball, and rarely ever gets sacked. So.
And then playing a top 10 team like Kentucky, how important is it to kind of have a measuring stick for your team playing one of the best teams in the nation?
I mean, we just play who's ever on the schedule, and especially early in the year, we got a lot to still work out. We had a lot of guys miss last week, injury-wise, that, you know, hopefully we'll be back this week. So, and we're still figuring things out with a lot of new players, new coaches. So we're a work in progress that, you know, my hope is we continue to improve, maybe more than some other teams, because we didn't have many returners, and we have so many new people and coaches to the program that hopefully you improve throughout the year more than you normally would.
Lane obviously got hot in the second half. Everybody knew that. Teams are both hot. But in the past, you've had guys, the leaders, the older guys, step up and not let that affect the team. Have you got some guys, hopefully in mind, that you look forward to them stepping up and making sure that doesn't happen going forward?
Well, the temperature's coming down, so that'll help. Yeah, I mean, you know, just really was, you know, I don't know that it was as much the heat. They got to play in the same heat, and I think it was, when we look at it, it was just guys losing focus and missing assignments and making poor decisions, you know, and then always in football, some breaks go your way when you're doing well, like the first half. That could have been different too, you know, the ball that gets reviewed out of Jackson's hands, you know, is 1 second away from being a fumble and a big turnaround of momentum there. And then in the second half, there's some that go the other way. We make a fourth down, Mingo's penalty, which is highly questionable, totally changes part of it. And, you know, and we false start on a fourth down that we're going to go for that looks like we're going to make and have to punt. So, you know, there's a lot of things that go into it. And it was the same heat that was in the first half, so.
Keegan Smith and Jaquez Jones were big pieces for you guys the last couple of years. Just getting to play against them, memories of having them on the team, and just what are you seeing from them on tape now that they're on the other side?
Both really great kids. It was awesome to be around them. You know, really good program guys. And, you know, it's like I said, it's more like professional sports now, where you have free agency that you go play people that used to play on your team, which didn't used to happen very much in college football. So, you know, glad they're doing well, just like all of our guys that leave and go other places. And, you know, wish them the best of luck.
Jordan Watkins muffed 2 punts on Saturday and probably got returned a ball he shouldn't have, and you ended up replacing him with Mingo. Do you envision that to be a thing moving forward, where he's not back there this week? Or?
Yeah, he just had an off game with that. He actually struggled in warm-ups, which is unusual for him. He's usually very sure-handed, so, you know, we have some other guys working back there too.